Hey, all you digital second brainers out there, Scott Novus. I want to share a scenario with you. So I've been showing you techniques, I've been showing you other things, but I didn't really give you a story. I didn't give you a scenario where this system really helped me. And this scenario goes back to, I run a company called GameTruck. We do video game events. I'm very passionate about creating feelings of belonging through play. And my hope is always to host an event where you can make a friend or friendships become stronger, right? It's all about connection for me. And somebody said, hey, could you do a team building? Because we do tons of video game parties for kids. What could we do for adults? And a lot of people, when they think of video games and adults, they fall into what I call the competition trap. Is they're thinking, oh, that's great. Let's go compete. And it's like, no, let's not go compete. And I realize that might be shocking for some of you, but one of the things, and there's a whole other rabbit hole we could go down, but the modern culture, especially for men, has become the only valid relationships we're allowed to have are competitive. The problem with that is competition shuts you down from vulnerability. Brene Brown has written about this, extensively, how corporate America hates the idea of vulnerability. I believe one of the reasons is that we're so obsessed with competition. It's okay for teams to compete with teams, but when you get individuals within teams competing against each other, we have a very distorted view of that, I think, from professional sports. And we think, oh, that's how our company should be. Well, there's only 750 professional baseball jobs in this country. That's it. And there are thousands of people trying to get every single one of those jobs. If you have that many people going for a job, you can do competition position to position, person to person, and you have like an endless supply of people behind you. But look at the compensation, look at the cost, look at, does your business, can it absorb that kind of turnover? Can it absorb to turnover half the people every single year? I don't think it can. I don't think most organizations can tolerate that. And you get a different outcome. Is competition focuses and narrows down to like, you got to get a specific outcome. And I think in a team building environment, you were looking for something a little different. I just love, there's a coach for the Arizona Cardinals who said, hey, we're not a team yet. We're a bunch of people trying to get a job. Once we have a roster, we'll have a team. And so there's a very different mindset about using competition to select and then what we do to work together to cooperate and collaborate. And so I wanted to zero in on cooperation and collaboration because I think for most of us, we work in an environment where we need problem solving, we need creativity, we need initiative. What we don't need is fear, right? The fear of, oh, I can't make a mistake. Mistakes of effort, I can live with. Mistakes of laziness, those are the ones that drive me crazy. And how do we get those out of our business? So how could I use a video game to encourage cooperation and collaboration? Competition's easy. We could do that all the time. But I wanted to do something different and innovative. So what does that have to do with the second brain? I start researching. I'm an engineer. The opening funnel for the engineering problem solving process is, hey, let's look at research. In fact, I can open that up. Engineering problem solving process. Look, one of the very first things that pops up, and you're going to get a diagram. And in this diagram, we got to define the problem. And right there's do background research. So trying to understand what I wanted to do, defining my problem, I want to create a great cooperative, collaborative experience for people. And I'm going to do research. That's where this tool comes in. So literally my first or second step, one of the earliest steps in creating something is I'm going to do a bunch of homework. This became the best possible tool I could use for beginning to understand how to connect ideas and how to pull things together. And so my first thing that popped into my head was I had read a book called Smarter, Faster, Better. It would help if I could spell smarter, faster, better. There it is in the library by Charles Duhigg. He was the author of The Power of Habit. I love his writing. He narrates his books. They're wonderful to listen to. And he tells a story of Google wanting to create high performance teams. And they have virtually unlimited resources, right? If you have $6 billion a month in profit or revenue, whatever, you could do whatever you want. They could hire the best people. They could do the best things. And they have their people analytics division. And there's a really entertaining story about how Sergey Brin and Larry Page were like, we're smart people. We don't need managers. And Eric Schmidt's like, you're crazy. Of course you need managers. And they argued about this for like a couple of years. And they finally said, let's ask the engineers. And the engineers were like, of course we need managers. So they set out to go, let's get the best managers. So they did a bunch of surveys and they came up with 8 principles that great managers should have to manage great teams. And so they roll this out worldwide, train everybody, and boom, they have no measurable improvement in team performance. Zip, none, no impact. What the heck? It's almost as if everything we know about leadership is just totally wrong. It doesn't produce the outcome you want. And you're like, how could that possibly be? So they start a new project. The leadership project was Project Oxygen. The next project is called Project Aristotle. And that's when they bring in Amy Edmondson and some other people that are experts in group norms. And this is where it gets super interesting. Well, for me as a researcher, I'm reading the story going, let me find out about Project Aristotle and Project Oxygen. And at that time, Google put online their findings. They said, here's what we found out. And I was able to research Amy Edmondson and her talk about creating psychological safety. And this web of sources and ideas and supporting information started to all come together. And now I've got a framework that talks about what kind of questions do you ask and how do you survey people and what kind of experiences do people have and what really shapes team performance. And as I'm working my way through all of gathering that information, what happens? I use what is now Para to start organizing things into creating a presentation that at the time I called Culture Kitchen. I now call it TeamCraft. But the idea was, let's use a video game to recreate an amazing work environment. And that information started going through, how do we do experiential learning? So there's a whole other branch of what's the best way to learn from experience in real time. And it turns out there's a flow to that of, hey, here's an idea. Let's play with the idea. Then let's reflect upon the idea. Wash, rinse, repeat, which is a great fit for video games. But this literally became my top, one of the best workshops that I do. And it actually led to us developing our own video game, because what we discovered was that, well, it's really hard for adults to get access to video games. IT people block their ports, or you need special graphics cards, or you got to drag a bunch of equipment everywhere. So we literally developed a video game that runs in your browser called Ready, Set, Cook that is focused on cooperation, and it is built to be fun and silly. And if you want to check it out, you can go to my website. It's up there right now as sort of a free preview demo. And there it is. It will load up. It's made with Unity, so it uses video game technology. And you give yourself a fun name, make a room, and you and 3 other people can jump in and cooperatively play and learn how to work together. So this is, I'm giving you an example of literally how I started with, I've got a problem to solve. I do my research. And if I go all the way back through that sort of engineering problem solving process, once I become educated, I was brainstorming. We developed a prototype using off the shelf video games. We tested it. We learned things. We came around and we looped until we ended up with our own video game that we can use to, not demo, basically get remote teams from all over the world to come together and play a video game together that scales. You can do almost any size group. If you could be on a Zoom call, you can run this. This is an example of how I went from question, tons of research, to then narrow back down to creating a new product. So there's a scenario for you of how I use a second brain to create real products, real services, and real value.